From the ground floor, we built every aspect of the business. We didn't have a product. It was just a sketch on a napkin and a business model, all the way to fast forward 8 years later, becoming the largest provider of safety and security robotics in the world. I've gotten to travel to over a dozen countries to expand the business, and we've now developed the leading AI platform for remote security monitoring for these enterprises. I'm Alejandro Ramirez. I'm Cooper class of 2012, and I'm currently the founder and chief product officer at CobaltAI. My journey to Cooper was actually part of me coming to the United States for the first time. So I was born and raised in Venezuela of Puerto Rican parents. And in 2003, we moved to the United States very quickly. And I was fortunate enough to land at Cooper. At that time was 4th grade. And so I was in Miss Child's homeroom in 4th grade, and I had just gotten to the country. And luckily I had a strong foundation in English, so the language was not an issue. Cooper was really a huge part of sort of establishing my new identity within the US. My path and journey at Cooper there was really formative, starting in those years of really building sort of the early relationships with my other classmates, many of whom I still talk to today. And then of course, going through the wonderful, sort of very immersive educational experience that Cooper had from 4th grade all the way through graduation in high school. And at the time, I knew that I wanted to study engineering. I think Cooper gave me this appreciation for the humanities and the arts, and so I was really looking for a well-balanced place. So I ended up going to a very small school in Pennsylvania, Bucknell University, which was a very challenging curriculum at Bucknell. And from day one, the math and physics was intense. And I was very fortunate to have been prepared so well by my AP classes and my curriculum at Cooper, where while I didn't necessarily know all the subject areas, I knew how to study and I knew how to learn. I had those frameworks for understanding how do I interpret and learn information, and then how do I position myself to be able to use that information, on a test or in a presentation. What I found was I was very well prepared on all of the sort of reading, writing, comprehension skills, communication skills was incredibly valuable coming out of Cooper. I think so many schools just overlook how important those fundamentals are. In college, I really love to build things. So I spent a lot of time building different things, race cars, solar-powered devices of different kinds. But it also was a time where I think a lot of these sort of early experiences that I took from Cooper flourished from the standpoint of entrepreneurship. While I was at Cooper, when I was about 15 years old, was the first time that I started a business. But I realized those skills that I had developed and that interest that I had in sort of understanding a user space, finding out like what problems do they have and being able to build a solution and then deliver it to them was really interesting to me. So throughout my college experience, I continued that sort of passion for entrepreneurship and for sort of seeking answers to interesting problems, and worked with a number of other startups. That is what ultimately led me to be able to graduate from Bucknell and come out to California. And so when I graduated from Bucknell, I decided to move to California here with my fiance who met at Cooper, Julie Johansson. I came here expecting to work at a larger company and sort of learn how things are supposed to work. And instead I went right into an early stage startup and helped found the company I now work at, CobaltAI. From the ground floor, we built every aspect of the business. We didn't have a product. It was just a sketch on a napkin and a business model, all the way to fast forward 8 years later, becoming the largest provider of safety and security robotics in the world. I've gotten to travel to over a dozen countries to expand the business. And we've now developed the leading AI platform for remote security monitoring for these enterprises. And so being really at the cutting edge of saying, how do we use the latest technologies for good to keep people safe? How do we take all of that technology and make it more useful and do it in a way that's really closely ingrained with the human element, not in replacement of the human, but really in a way that allows them to focus on things that are really rewarding, really fulfilling, and that require empathy and judgment. That whole path for me of really embracing the entrepreneurial mindset and spirit has now allowed me to have an extremely rewarding and really fun career in technology in ways that I could have never imagined, I think, when I was at Cooper. But all of the foundational blocks that I need today were built there. My life now, it's about continuous improvement, learning, always staying curious, and the excitement and the curiosity that the teachers at Cooper brought to the classroom, I think were really something that was ingrained in me and I'm really thankful for. I had a phenomenal band teacher, Graham Tobin, who eventually encouraged me to actually go out and audition, and I ended up in the Texas All-State Band. And that was really one of my core memories. And so finding that I could not only push myself and excel in the classroom, but also excel sort of in the arts and find more creative expressions was really important. I think the other piece of the Cooper education, which was super impactful to me, was really sports. Cooper does a tremendous job of making sports a part of life. Sports can teach us a tremendous amount about teamwork, about leadership, for me, very importantly, about failure and perseverance. And it really allowed me to set goals for myself in an environment where I wasn't always comfortable, and to push myself outside of that comfort zone and to really learn how to persevere through that failure. My favorite place on campus, there are many, but I think one that's really special would be inside of the acoustic shell on the GPAC stage. I think Cooper's really well positioned to prepare students for the future. A big part of what makes me say that is I feel like as I was leaving Cooper, this foundational sort of broad education that had always been there was starting to also be complemented by all of these areas that very few other schools are able to provide at that age for students. There's everything from science and math skills around getting your hands on just software design and tinkering with circuits and building physical things, all the way to doing those within an art context of actually getting to like create multimedia art and you go into all these different areas. I think these areas of greater sort of specialization or interest are things that previously were only available to students if they selected that major in college. And Cooper is making available much earlier in the learning experience. For me, one of the most confusing things about going to college was arriving and having to pick a major. And as an 18-year-old, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I think that Cooper providing these different experiences gives students the opportunity to explore some of these areas sort of in a deeper way, and to see what does it actually feel like to actually build something or to actually work on something that serves the community in a very visceral way where you get to like actually interact with people and see their reaction. As I look towards the future, I think Cooper's investment in going deeper in those areas where it's already been very successfully broad, I think sort of accelerates and creates an opportunity for students earlier in their life to have exposure and learn from those things, which I think is really exciting. There's a lot of talk right now about what the future looks like and how education needs to evolve. I'm obviously living in the world of everybody talking about AI all the time. My perspective on this is that while we will have these super intelligent computers, your kid's superpower is their humanity. And I think Cooper instills a sense of empathy and critical thinking and community in a way that very few other educational programs have. And I think that's absolutely critical to creating the future that we need.